raw and put around it. But this guy here is about 20 years old. He's got some stars like this. And he's out there. Right there, like
Hey everyone, welcome to what I like to call the digital version of Katmai National Park. This is Ranger Daniel. I'm going to be doing some commentary here about what I'm watching here at Brooks Falls. I'm still it's a rainy day here, rainy summer day, and I'm trying to get some things adjusted. I've got a big rubber raincoat on, I've got a camera or a bag over the camera, and we're trying to keep everything dry, myself included. So this is going to be a little ranger commentary to go along with Explore.org's bear cam feed. Maybe you've seen that before. If you're new to it, I'll be explaining some of what we're looking at here as we go along. I'm going to try and answer some questions in the comments if I can do that. I don't usually get to too many because we just get so excited about what we're watching. We did this last night and things got a little bit out of hand. We were so excited. Tonight seems like a little bit quieter, but there's a lot of fish jumping, so I don't know, things could heat up. Okay, so let's get started. Like I said, this is Ranger Daniel. Every now and then a ranger like me hops on these cams and provides some commentary, just explains some of the things that we're watching, gives a talk on a subject, something like that. We got about a dozen different interpretive rangers that work out here in Katmai National Park, and we all just love getting out and talking to people about it. That's really what our job is, and so I really love getting on this camera and talking to as many people as possible at once. So Katmai National Park, it's a big park. I always start off by talking about this kind of thing. Bigger than Yellowstone and Yosemite combined. Really big place, really remote place. And it's a really good place for brown bears and for sockeye salmon. Maybe we should say it's a really good place for sockeye salmon, so that makes it a really good place for brown bears. Here, I got the camera pointed at a big brown bear right now. I swear he looks bigger than he looked yesterday. There we go, he's got a fish already. Look at this, he's not even eating it. We're going to talk about that. He's taking his time to eat it. We'll talk about that too. I'm always interested to hear everyone's thoughts on what they think is going on, and if you got questions, you know, post those too. Try and get to some of them. This is a bear we see out here all the time, and genuinely I feel like he looks bigger today than he looked yesterday. Maybe I'm just seeing things, and we'll see what everyone else thinks. So what's happening? Well, we got a brown bear eating a salmon. The salmon are ocean-going fish for the most part. They were born in these streams, born down in the gravel, born in freshwater rivers and streams, or sometimes in lakes, and then they overwinter in those areas, but slowly make their way out into the ocean, where they spend 1 to 4 years, usually 2 or 3 years, and they travel around the big Pacific Ocean gyre, the big Pacific Ocean current, circling around that, eating zooplankton and cocopods, little things like that. Little things that, you know, at the bottom of the food chain. These are not vicious meat-eating fish. They're really eating little things out there. But they do that for a while, and they get pretty big and fat. One of these fish, they say, is, you know, more than 4,000 calories in one of them that's fresh from the ocean. So what is that? 9 cheeseburgers or something? That's what we kind of say out here. Is something like that? So a real big. If you see a real big sockeye salmon, maybe we'll just round it up and say that one's a 10 cheeseburger. So it becomes a really good food source for the bears. So every summer when these sockeye salmon come in from the ocean, the bears just gorge themselves, eating as many as they can, getting as fat as they can for the winter. They've got to eat enough in the summer to survive all winter, right? Because I think one thing most people know about bears is that they hibernate every winter. These bears are the same way. We talked about that last night. They dig a den every winter, and they don't eat or anything when they're in there. Something else we can talk about, if anyone's interested in talking about it, is the fact that these salmon aren't eating anything either. Let me zoom over to where the salmon are jumping right now, and you can see how energetic they are and crazy they're jumping. Those fish are not eating anything. They have not eaten anything in maybe a week. These particular fish right here. Whoa, they're one mated up. Do you guys see that? Seems like maybe only 1 in 10 jumps is successful up the falls. So they got to jump up several times, and sometimes they'll get pummeled by the water or traumatized, or they'll exhaust themselves, and they'll then go floating downstream and become food for younger bears or female bears with cubs, things like that. Alright, we got some other bears downriver in the riffles. I can try and zoom over there real quick just so we kind of all know what's going on here, and everyone's got a lay of the land. Speaking of the lay of the land, you know, so I talked about Katmai being this really big national park. Oh, you can see that's my bag there that I've got hanging over the top of the camera. It might fall in front of the lens every now and then. Okay, the camera's a little crooked here. Let me zoom in. There's a bear doing a little bit of a different fishing technique. We can talk about the different fishing techniques. This place, fishing right here at the falls, is really based on hierarchy, and big dominant bears end up getting the best spots right here by the falls, where some of the younger bears and sometimes the females have to fish down there in an area we call the riffles using a different technique. They can often be just as successful. So I'm not able to, a lot of times people want to know the individual ID numbers or know the sex of these bears and everything, and we can talk about that a little bit later. You know, those bears are far away. I don't know what individuals they are, or if anyone knows what individuals they are. You can see the other one walking back there on the shore. Looks like maybe going back up into the trees. Alright, let's come back to the falls. The salmon are really jumping right now, so a really common question is, why, if there's so many salmon jumping, are there not more bears here? Well, one of the kind of going hypothesis as to the answer for that is that there are a lot of bears when the salmon are jumping like this. They just can catch them so quickly and easily that they end up getting full. They fill their stomachs absolutely to capacity, and then they go in the woods and take a nap. And so there are more bears when the salmon are jumping really heavily. We just don't see them as much. And you know, the salmon were jumping okay last night, and we ended up seeing a few more bears. So I don't know, there's not hard evidence on this yet, but it seems to be pretty true. I can even try and zoom in on the water here down below me. The salmon are really thick today. A lot of times these ripples you'll even see, some of them are caused by rocks, but some of it is just the fish themselves. Can you see them moving in there? That was the tail. So I'm looking at actually a lot of pink salmon. You know, I've been talking about sockeye salmon so far, but a lot of these are actually pink salmon, and that doesn't mean they're the red ones. The red ones are the sockeyes sometimes. Right now, all the ones jumping, those are pretty much all sockeye salmon, but the sockeye salmon are going to turn red over the next few weeks. But there's also pink salmon down here, and maybe we'll even see if we can see one spawning. here in a little bit. Let me zoom in. We'll see if we can see this big guy catch another fish. This bear uses a really kind of patient, sit and wait kind of fishing technique. Really lets the fish come to him. Doesn't put too much energy into it, you know. Really is trying to conserve his calories. Okay, so if you're just joining me, this is Ranger Daniel, Katmai National Park, Alaskan Peninsula. We're watching brown bears catch fish. These bears are wild, totally wild. The fish are totally wild. There's no hatchery or anything like that. Humans aren't involved in any of this. I'm going to be talking for the next hour. I'd like to go more, but the camera battery here just doesn't want me to. Last night we went until the battery died. Maybe we'll do that again tonight. There's another bear down there. Looks like it's eating a sockeye right now. So, like I was saying, I'm going to be answering questions and everything, so every now and then you'll just hear me go quiet. That's I'm looking at the questions, or I'm just enjoying the show like everyone else. But I just wanted to remind everyone that this is a wild event, and I think that's really what makes it so special is that it is wild. I'm standing on a platform right now, big wooden platform with a crowd of people that are all also enjoying this here. We get a lot of visitors up here to Katmai National Park, hoping to see this happen every summer. All right, let's see if we have any questions. Okay, so everyone's people are asking about the injured bear again. We talked a little bit about that last night, and I had some excuses, and I have some more excuses tonight. I have no news. I asked some other rangers, and they didn't know anything about it. Ranger David, who did seem to know about it, has the day off, so I haven't got to talk to him. And someone was asking if I had asked Ranger Leslie about it, and Ranger Leslie lives in a different part of Brooks Camp than I do, and I see her very infrequently. I have to do a lot of work when I want to see her, and I try to go out and shoot some video with her and interview her every now and then with some of the work she's doing, and I'll be talking about that. We can talk about that later this hour, or we'll for sure be talking about it later this summer. But so I haven't seen her. Long story short, I have no update on the injured bear that we saw. But I will go ahead and say that bears are incredibly resilient. If you've been watching these cams very long, you for sure have seen some bears recover from some pretty intense injuries. Okay. Someone just posted a question. That's a good one. How far up the estuary does saltwater extend, and is the lake below Brooks Falls saltwater? You know, so is there an issue with sharks or anything like that? Oh, we've got a new bear. Does everyone see that yet? Sorry, let me zoom out. It's right there in the background, and he's got a fish right off the bat. Very exciting. We'll watch him eat this. There's a lot we can learn about bears. Probably a lot you could learn about salmon too by watching a bear eat it. So yeah, we got fresh water here. This river is fresh water, and it's a Brooks River, and this is a Brooks Falls, and the structure and the infrastructure around here is called Brooks Camp, and this water is flowing out of a lake called Lake Brooks. So some people get particular about that. They say it's not Brooks Lake, it's Lake Brooks. I get a headache if I think about it too hard. So that's all freshwater, right? And that's flowing into Naknek Lake. Naknek. And then Naknek Lake is a huge lake. It's the biggest lake contained wholly within a national park in the country. I think it's one of the biggest lakes in Alaska, which is a very big state with a lot of big lakes. So it's really big. And yeah, it's totally freshwater. So it's a beautiful turquoise, beautiful, amazing lake. And just pristine water. I really have no words to describe its value to me, just kind of socially, just how beautiful it is to me. But the other day I was just thinking about how amazing it is how much value just that much fresh water has. It's really amazing. And so Katmai National Park is here to protect. You know, it's easy to think of us protecting these bears, and that's a huge part of it. But it's all one thing. I think that's maybe something we should talk about tonight is that how all of this is connected. You can't just protect bears if you don't also protect Naknek Lake. And we can talk about why that is as we go along. The question actually though was, is it saltwater? Yeah, no, it's not. It's freshwater. And so Naknek Lake flows into the Naknek River, which isn't a very long river. What is it? Maybe 30 miles, maybe 40 if you count all the twists and turns. And that flows out into the Bering Sea, the Pacific Ocean, and what we call Bristol Bay. Bristol Bay, of course, is saltwater. So guys, things are getting kind of exciting here. We're getting some more bears. Sorry. Got a bear. I'm going to try and pan the camera with him or her. So there's not any issues per se with sharks in Bristol Bay or anything, but there are sharks in Bristol Bay, a variety of kinds, including salmon shark. Without the salmon, you know, the salmon are pretty important for a lot of different species, and brown bears are just one of the apex predators that depend on salmon. Salmon shark is another one. So about up to king salmon, or a little ways past that, to a place, to kind of a section of rapids camp is what we call it. The Naknek River is tidal and has some salt water in it. And there's been some ocean-going seals. They say even all the way out here at Brooks Camp. I don't know if I believe that, but for sure there's instances frequently of seals being seen eating salmon at the upper end of the Naknek River.
Oh, we got another one. The other one got one.
So those are seals, you know, in Naknek Lake, coming up there to catch fish. I don't know exactly why they would come up into the lake to do that when there's plenty of fish in the lower river and in the bay, but maybe just for less competition, something like that. If you have any ideas, you know, go ahead and post them. Get the discussion going. That's one thing I really want these chats to do, is kind of get a discussion going. I've sort of lost track what we were talking about. I'm going to pull out the comments here and see if we got any more questions. Oh, sorry, I'm not looking at the camera now. Chelsea Hodge asked, what types of injuries do the bears typically get? So they're susceptible to all kinds of... Let's start with what we're seeing right here. You cannot eat this much raw fish and have a healthy stomach. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way. There's a reason humans cook their fish. These fish do frequently have worms in them, and these bears will get them. It's not uncommon. Watch on the cameras, well, or don't. It's up to you. When the bears defecate, sometimes we'll see tapeworms and nastiness like that. Very common. Very tough animals, though. They can overcome that. But also, these bears fight with each other. They do everything they can to avoid it, but it happens. They'll fight over females. They'll fight over access to food resources, to space. Sometimes they just startle each other and can't get over it, and end up fighting over that. So we'll see a lot of you know, physical trauma injuries, you know, or superficial injuries to their skin. on their shoulders or on their backs, cutaway skin. All these bears are looking pretty healthy now. I think a lot of the disputes have been settled. The hierarchy is pretty much agreed upon by the bears. And there's enough food that most conflicts now are settled with their words, so to speak. They'll growl at each other and kind of bluff at each other until one or the other backs down. Alright, maybe we should do a little survey here. We got 3 bears right here. Let me look down the river. There's one, but I can't really, it's behind the tree down by the riffles a little bit. So at least 4 right here in the area. Oh, let's zoom in on this. Look at these gulls. A lot of times the gulls here look pretty full. These gulls look pretty hungry. These are glaucous wing gulls. And they depend on the bears to catch the fish for them, break them open. The gulls are not equipped to get into a salmon's tough skins. Salmon are pretty tough fish. They're not, you've maybe handled, if you've ever caught a trout of some kind or anything, the salmon feel different. They're a heavier, dutier fish. They feel kind of like a industrial level of a trout. You know, they're not as light, they're a lot heavier. Their skin feels thicker. Oh, there's too much to look at, but I won't make you just watch the gulls. But see those gulls fighting over it as well, just like the bears do. This is all connected. Remember what I was saying? It's all connected. The gulls depend on the bears to do all this. So gulls, the salmon, and the bears all linked together, all depending on a clean water resource. Of course, the gulls also need a place to nest, so they need habitat for that. Oh, so some people are asking about that bear we were seeing that might be overflow. I'm really not sure. You guys can call it that if you'd like. I'm game. Oh, and some people are talking that they have personally, on the cams, they have seen seen a seal. That's pretty cool. So that's something to watch for. Just dropped that fish. I wish I had been recording. I wonder if anyone got a screenshot of that. That looked like a trout. Maybe I just was seeing it funny, but that didn't look like a salmon. And I don't know if it slipped away or if the bear dropped it. It's one of those interesting things, you know. These bears will definitely eat a trout if they're hungry. In Yellowstone, that's one of their main food sources, is the cutthroat trout. But here, they're going for the salmon just because they're so big and fatty. We kind of always think that they would eat a trout if they caught one, though. But if that was the case, then maybe this bear is mostly just interested in the salmon. Compare the energy economics in these different fishing styles. The sit and wait, the bounce and pounce, as we talked about yesterday, or the dash and grab, as some people call it. Oh, there's some tension back here. Arguing over a food resource. One bear could be trying to steal it from the other. Arguing over space. Most of the time, this is resolved without actual contact, especially this time of year. We'll just see what happens, though. Cheery said that it always looks like someone is juggling the salmon. I always think it looks like a popcorn machine when the popcorn just starts bouncing everywhere and flying everywhere. So yeah, here we had that conflict was settled without violence. There's really not much advantage, even if you're very confident that you're the tougher bear. You could get injured, it could get infected. There's nothing to be gained by fighting needlessly. This speaks to the power of the animal. A human would likely not be able to just walk through that water so casually. I walked through the water to some extent in the spring before the bears were here, but the water wasn't this high then. Well, that was pretty neat. That fish just washed right down to the bear, but it was still too slow to catch it. So these are pretty big, powerful animals to be able to just walk through that water so smoothly. Chippy also said, is there some reason the majority of the fish try to jump over the falls in one concentrated area? That's a really good question. There is a reason, and it is that the fish are really only successful in one area. The bear is eating. That's a big fish. Did he lose it? That one might have been a king salmon. That was or just a very, very large sockeye. It was hard to tell. I didn't get a good look at it. Oh, he still got it. It's turning out to be a very good night here at the falls. After my time spending a lot of time viewing bears in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem and places like that, it's hard to just not be so excited to see bears here where they're just so thick. There's so many. There's just not anywhere else in the world where you can see bears this thick and this close. It's just so fantastic. Tennessee girl wants to know the average weight of a salmon. Yeah, about 5 pounds. Someone has already kind of helped answer that for here anyway. Every year the fishing industry, the commercial fishing industry keeps track of the average weights and that kind of thing. That'd be something you could look up and see kind of how big the fish are this year compared to other years. I haven't seen that yet myself. Okay, some people are asking why they're not eating the whole fish. I guess we better get into that, huh? So we call it high grading. Maybe we should come up with a more fun name. Kat Brown has a fun analogy here. She calls it, it's like scraping the white sugary stuff off an Oreo cookie and then leaving the rest. I really like that. And that's right. Basically, these bears are just eating the fattiest and most nutritious part of the fish. Sometimes coming back, though, for a sniff at least, and something else. So they're eating the most nutritious and fattiest parts of the fish, the most high-calorie parts, which is good economics, energy economics. They don't want to spend, when the fish are this easy to catch, they're just trying to find the easiest way to get the most calories, and that fish meat really just kind of sits in their stomach. It's not as dense of calories, so it's more efficient to just eat the fattiest parts, which is the brains, the skin, and if it's a female fish, the eggs. So that's what these bears are doing. Alright, we're watching some eagles here too. Let me pan up, see them go by? Look like juvenile bald eagles. We see those around here quite a bit. Also very connected to this ecosystem. If the bears weren't here, the eagles can tear open the salmon on their own when they catch them. But if the bears are here, they'll simply swipe the fish from the gulls. It's common to see the eagles swoop down and steal a fish like that from the gulls. MBR has a good question about the amount of water at Brooks this year. Has it happened before? Any changes in the bear behavior because of the water? Things like that. And someone else was asking about the underwater cam. I won't be able to say much about what's happening on the underwater cam, obviously, because I'm up here, but I can put in a plug for it that you should watch it. I'm going to try and remember to clean it on my way back down to camp this evening. I've seen some pretty amazing screenshots of the bears swimming around below the bridge there at the underwater cam. The water is really high this year, so basically Alaska just had the warmest spring on record. March, April, May, super hot in Alaska, including here in Katmai. And so we're seeing a lot more glacial runoff for this time of year, and a lot of the snowpack melted pretty early on. Has it been this high before? I think it has. You know, if we start looking at big picture history, I'm sure it has, just on random years before we started keeping track of things, but it might not have ever been this high this time of year. This could be an unprecedented thing. I heard some of the rangers talking to some of the people who've been here a real long time, some the lodge folks, and they said that they can remember maybe 2 years in the past few decades that were similar to this, but I think that was later in the season that the water had got this high. Is it changing the way the bears are fishing? This is also a good question. It's hard to know for sure. You know, you have to look at some actual data to say for sure. And maybe we'll have some of that at the end of the season that we can compare, you know, and put it all together. But we might not also. One of the things that has kind of anecdotally been questioned is maybe that we're seeing less dash and grab in some of the lower parts of the river because the water's just too deep for it. So maybe they're changing their strategies in that way. The fish are probably loving it. Fish love water. That's what they live in. And more of it is generally better, especially for the adult fish. High runoff can be detrimental to the eggs, can be detrimental to the young fry salmon or fry of other fish. We could see them get washed downstream or just expend way too many calories just staying in the current. Their habitat could be kind of flooded out. They like those marshy areas, you know, the edges of the river, slow-moving areas. Those could cease to exist if the water gets too high. But these are kind of the things, you know, that people aren't really keeping track of. It's just, you know, you can't keep track of all these little tiny things. And so we'll just have to see what the effects are and try and... I think the key is to try and think in a whole ecosystem kind of way. Think about what's happening on the bigger picture. our politics and our system of understanding nature is based largely on the species, the idea of a species. So, you know, you start with an organism. Whoa. That, ladies and gentlemen, was called a bluff charge. This is often what bears will do. They'll charge right up to the face of their opponent and stop. They don't really want to conflict. Their hope is that they can scare the other bear away. So right here, they're fighting over just space. Bears are not social creatures. They don't like to be around each other. The reason they tolerate it here, and the reason we do see bears this close to each other, is because there's so much food. You won't see bears in the lower 48 this close together because we don't have salmon runs like this anymore in the lower 48. Okay, so I was talking about how the way we understand nature, for the most part, in Western society, has a lot to do with the species. You have the organism. There's an organism right there. We're watching this organism. Around here, individual organisms are pretty important to us because we see the same ones so much. But in most ecosystems, that's not true. You don't get to see the same individual organisms over and over. But you can see the same species over and over in a lot of different places. Alright, we got at least 4 bears right here. If you're just joining me, my name is Ranger Daniel. I'm doing some commentary, just talking about what I'm watching here at the Brooks Falls in Katmai National Park. We're a big national park on the Alaskan Peninsula. It's a beautiful July day here, which means that it's a little bit rainy, a little bit cool and cloudy. And we're watching brown bears catch sockeye salmon for the most part. We've seen some other catches, maybe, hard to say. There are a lot of other kinds of fish in this river. But 99% of the fish we see, and pretty much all the fish we see jumping there, are sockeye salmon. A little bit of play behavior. I'm going to just go ahead and remind everyone how rare and special just that little moment was for those 2 bears playing together there. It doesn't happen too often. In most places, that is. Here we get to see it with some regularity, but that doesn't mean it's not very, very special. We're very fortunate to get to see this kind of thing. And that's really what Katmai is all about. So what the National Park Service is all about is preserving these things that are so special for everyone to be able to see, hopefully forever. So what makes a species a species? We won't get into the question of what makes an organism an organism. I think we can all agree that that bear is an individual animal. But one of the ideas is that two different species can't reproduce with each other, and produce fertile offspring. But that with animals that we think of as different species often can reproduce and produce fertile offspring. Different bear species, different canine species, different fish species. Happens all the time. Hybrids. I don't have a problem with the idea of a species, but some scientists argue that it's a little bit arbitrary and inconsistent. We have that discussion a lot here around subspecies. What's the difference between a brown bear and a grizzly bear? What's the difference between a Kodiak bear? Well, in a lot of ways they're really all the same thing. They can all reproduce and produce fertile offspring. But a lot of people say they're different subspecies. What we kind of all agree on is that, or most people agree on anyway, is that grizzly bears are the interior version of a brown bear that don't live on the coast, that don't live primarily off of coastal resources like salmon or other marine resources. These bears out on the coast of Katmai will eat clams even. We have a video, maybe you've seen it if you've been watching for a while. We have a video of a bear eating a flounder. It's pretty amazing. Pretty special thing. There's a bear enjoying a marine resource right there. Eating the skin like we talked about, one of the fattiest parts, peeling that right off of there. He may eat the eggs if it's a female. He'd probably take a bite out of the head and eat the brains. The fattiest parts with the most calories. But if we didn't have the idea of a species, it would be pretty difficult to study these animals. But a lot of the science now is showing that it's not that black and white, it's not that simple. The species, one population of animals can be pretty distinct from another population of animals, even though they are the same species. Like maybe the Gobi bears. They're a brown bear. They live in Mongolia. Different subspecies, pretty distinct from these bears, even though they're the same species. So we have the organism, the species, and the ecosystem. A lot of people argue that the best way to think about all of this is at the ecosystem level. It's like I was saying, about everything being connected. If we look at the ecosystem level and we preserve the lakes, and we care about the lakes and the trees and the gulls and all of that, then the bears and the salmon will be preserved as well. So that looking at one species or one organism is not enough. Not that those things should be ignored. Alright, let me shut up for a minute and look at some questions and see what else we want to talk about. Okay, a few minutes ago, Fletch Mom asked, said they were here in 2001, and that say the bear numbers seem like they're really down, especially this year. And, you know, is the park studying that? Are we looking into increase in human activity, declining number of bears, things like that? That is something the park's looking into. But first, we don't know for sure what the bear numbers are doing. We can keep track of bear numbers here at the falls and what we see on the cams and that kind of thing, but the numbers can fluctuate quite a bit for natural, totally normal reasons. I know it sounds like a lot when we say we have several decades worth of data on bear numbers here, but these bears have been doing this for a long time, and their salmon have been doing it for a long time too, and a few decades is kind of just a blip. So it's hard to say. But yeah, you know, we're driving a lot of vehicles around here. There's a lot of people on this platform right now, all around me. There's airplanes flying overhead and stuff. What effect does all that have? That's something we're looking into. There's no solid answer, but it doesn't seem very likely that all of this human activity encourages more bears. I suppose it could, but something that the park is looking into, and we just don't have any real solid answers yet. Someone says it's hard to believe they're solitary animals when you see them play like that. Yeah, I know. I agree. It can be hard to play. And you know, that reminds me of some of the research that's going on with mountain lions in the lower 48 right now. People always say that, no, they're very, very solitary creatures. But more and more remote cameras and trap camera studies showing that they interact a lot more than we thought. Doesn't mean that they're not solitary animals. They're not social. They don't live together like humans do, or maybe other apes, like gorillas or chimpanzees are very much social animals. Or how about ants? Those are pretty social animals. A lot of birds are social animals. Compared to other animals who are real, true social animals, it's pretty clear bears, big cats, a lot of apex predators are solitary animals. Think about a wolf pack. That's an apex predator, but very much social animal. Sorry, I know all that sounds a little contradicting, but I think when we're talking about this kind of stuff, and there's so much we don't know, there is a little bit of contradiction, and I think that helps encourage healthy debate and healthy thought about it. That this is wild. We talked about last night, wild meaning unpredictable. That means that solitary animals will play, they'll fight, they'll interact. Even though all other indications would point towards them living more solitary lives. Oh my gosh, I love this comment from someone in the below. By the way, you know, if you're listening to this, feel free to throw your question or your comment down in the comments down below. I'm probably answering 1% of the comments, so I'm sorry about that, but I'm still trying to read them as I go along. Someone said, arbitrary and inconsistent is the definition of existence. That's just terrific. Isn't it true? Okay, here's a good question, a little bit personal. What's your favorite feature or experience at Katmai? There's a lot of really good stuff about being here, but I'm going to keep it simple, keep it short, and honestly say that this is probably my favorite thing. When there's a lot going on and it's kind of hard to take it all in, but I get to just talk to people about it and share it with everyone, and you know, try and share what I know, and hopefully just share kind of my passion too, and how excited I am to watch it, because I know so many other people are so excited to be watching this, and I just can't imagine a better use of my time than to talk to everyone about these bears and this fish and the ecosystem as a whole, like we're talking about, you know, the whole thing. It all works together. Man, look at that. When they dive in there and they do that bounce and pounce, you just see all the other fish jump to get out of the way. All those riffles. Got one. It's gonna eat it right there. We've been talking about how, oh, I think he's gonna get it back. Yeah. We've been talking about how they really only eat the fattiest part of the fish right now. Sometimes they'll throw the rest away and let it float down. But let me tell you, it doesn't go to waste. Everything is connected. All those seagulls in the background, let me zoom out. See them all? That's what they depend on. They depend on the carcass left behind. Eagles, osprey, they're all doing the same thing, feeding their babies with that. A couple different kinds of gulls doing that. Then the carcass is floating down, feeding younger bears, feeding sows with cubs who feel like it's too risky to come fish up here at the falls. So it's not going to waste. And honestly, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Imagine all the other fish we got that are depending on all this leftovers that the bears are leaving exposed. Tons of fish are utilizing that. Tons and tons of invertebrates and insects. And the trees too. Maybe you've heard of this. Sometimes the bears, when they take the salmon like that and they take it up on shore to eat it, or maybe that one right there that he's got in his mouth, maybe it'll wash onto shore later. We got an island right here with a tree on it. Maybe it just washes onto that shore. All the nitrogen and nutrients that came from the ocean that fish has stored in its skin. What do you think happens when it decays and soaks into the soil on that island or on the shore anywhere that a bear might leave it? There's one right there. What do you think happens when that salmon soaks into the soil and all that nitrogen, all those nutrients? Yeah, they get absorbed by the grasses, by the tree. This willow bush probably has roots right down under that bear right now. I can almost guarantee it that there's roots under that, soaking up that nutrient-rich water, improving the health of the soil. Some research has actually, looked at this specifically, and they've found they can look at the different, nitrogen isotopes and stuff like that. They can look at the chemistry of the tree, and they can say these nutrients specifically came from salmon, from marine salmon. So it's all intimately connected, because what do you think is purifying the rainwater and the groundwater? What keeps the soil from eroding down into the river and keeping the rivers from being muddy brown? Well, the grass and the trees, they prevent erosion, and they clean and purify that water, keep the rivers flowing nice and clear for the fish. Where do you think the oxygen comes from? Yeah, storing all the carbon and everything, the trees. It's all connected. Alright, I'm gonna see if I can find another question. Do fish sleep? That is a good question. Not really. Not like we do anyway. They have to keep pumping their gills to breathe, so they don't necessarily have to move to do that, but they got to tread water, they got to stay in place. So they go into kind of a state of inactivity, and they're not moving nearly as much. But it's not so they rest, I should say, I guess. But it's not sleep like we have it. Isn't there some kind of famous quote about if fish sleep, what do they dream about or something? Maybe I made that up. Any different, but yeah, that's where the fat is. Someone asked if it was unusual to see that big bear. It was bear 410 sleeping under the platform the other day, and it's not unusual. I mean, it's not. It doesn't happen all the time this time of year, but especially in September, it happens all the time. And already this year, we've had that bear sleep a lot in that area. I'd say maybe it's a tiny bit unusual to be right under the platform. Very near the platform is incredibly common, but right under it? It's only happened once so far this summer. We'll see if it happens a lot more in September. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe I'll explain some of that too. Yeah, in September, after these salmon have reproduced, laid their eggs, fertilized them and everything, they'll be all bright red. Sockeye salmon will. And they're going to grow weak. They are what's called semilparous, however you want to pronounce it. They only reproduce once in their whole life, and then they die. Kind of romantic and tragic. So when that happens, you know, over the next 8 weeks, they'll start to move downstream, not just dying all at once, but growing weaker and weaker, and they'll flow through this section of the river pretty quickly because the current's fast. But the sections downstream, the lower river, and we have cams, you can watch the cams of the lower river, and those sections where the water's moving slower, the fish are going to kind of hang out there in their last days, and these bears will congregate down in that area. So in this month, this is the camera to be watching. Up here, you know, we hang out at the falls and watch the bears fishing the falls. But in September, the action will be at the lower river, and that's where you're going to want to be watching. Does anybody stay in the park year-round? Well, it kind of depends on what you mean in the park. But no, not really. In the wintertime, this place is pretty quiet. No one lives here year-round. There are park employees who work in park headquarters in the small town of King Salmon. I encourage you to, you know, look all this up on a map. I don't know. Anyway, I think better when I look at a map and I can really understand things. Especially if you're planning to come out to visit. Go ahead and take a look at a map, try and make sense of all of this. King Salmon is a stopover for a lot of people on their way out here, and it's also where park headquarters is. And so people will be there all winter long, and then they'll frequently come out here to do research or maintenance or just check on things. That happens quite a bit. But no one lives out here year-round. Elizabeth asked a question a little while ago, do these bears hibernate? Oh, it looks like some people have got some good answers, but yeah, the answer is yes, they do. They dig a den every fall. When they go into the den has a lot more to do with food availability than it does with temperature or snow or anything like that. So once they're having trouble finding food, they're going to start looking for a place to den for the winter. Someone was asking about that, you know, since we were talking about the big female bear, bear 410, big bear sleeping under the platform. I posted a video of it on Facebook, and someone was just saying, you know, is that concerning? Well, it depends on who you ask. It's kind of a pretty complex question. Yeah, someone in the comments was wondering, you know, is it concerning that the bear is that comfortable with humans? Sorry, I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit here and try and get you guys a better view. Sorry. There, that's a little better. I can control it a little better now. We do try to keep these bears as wild as possible. That's a question I can't, you know, you'll have to answer for yourself. Do you think that if a bear is comfortable sleeping close to people like that, is it still a wild bear? Is it still a wild animal? It's a good question. There's no easy answers. For the most part, most of the bears are not at all comfortable with that. Even among the bears around Brooks Camp here, which are pretty human-tolerant bears. But around Katmai as a whole, it would be pretty special. You know, there's not bears that would sleep that close to a human. But that bear's been around here most of its life. Yeah, it's very used to people. And it's something that the bear techs and the rangers here keep an eye out for, because yeah, they mainly they're worried about the humans, I think, becoming too complacent, saying, oh, that bear sleeps right next to me, it's fine, it doesn't care if I'm here, I can get close to it, it doesn't mind us. Well, it turns out that we're not that good at reading bear like, you know, I don't speak bear. If anyone tells you they do, they're pulling your leg. It's hard to know what these animals are thinking, and it's tempting to just put our emotions, our ideas, or our way of thinking onto what they're doing, but we have no way of knowing what they're thinking and how they feel about things. Which, of course, is what makes them so amazing. One of the things. There's a lot of things that make them amazing. I can see 3 bears downriver, but they're a ways down there, and they're not doing anything too exciting at this moment, so I'll keep the camera up this way. And so that means we got at least 5 bears right here in the area. Here's a good question. As calorie intake goes up and hunger goes down, are the bears more inclined to play? Or in the case of 273, which is one of the bears we were watching earlier today, and the cub, more inclined to investigate things like buried cables? It's a good question. In a lot of ways, bears that are really hungry are actually more investigative. They're always checking, you know, is this food, is that food, can I get a food reward here, am I going to get an easy meal by doing this? You know, where can I get dinner tonight? And so they're biting things, digging up things, looking around, constantly on the move, looking for food. Whereas once they have a lot of food, they can become pretty docile, pretty chill animals, where they just sit around and don't do a whole lot else. The playing, though, is a little bit more difficult to really know anything, you know. They seem to play all the time, year-round. I mean, it's a special thing, but it happens, maybe that's it, is that it happens rarely enough that it's hard to really statistically correlate it with anything else, with confidence anyway. That's one of those things that we can all kind of give our 2 cents on and our educated guesses, and it's hard to be wrong. Kenny Blossom commented a few minutes ago, when would we intervene to help a bear? Before I answer that, I would love to, you know, just take a moment to think about if you were the king of Katmai National Park or the queen of Katmai. There's a bear down there. Let me try and get the camera to point downward. I don't know why it's not. If you were in charge of this place, what would your policy be? What bears would you intervene with? Say this bear trips and breaks its nose or something. Would you send a veterinary tech down there would you tranquilize the bear and send the vet tech down there to work on it and make sure it's okay? Would you do an inspection on the bears to make sure they don't have tapeworms? Or maybe if a bear was, you know, where would you draw the line, you know? If it had a mortal injury, would you try and save it? Or would you say, no, hands off. These are wild animals, I'm not going to intervene. I think, you know, if you want to, you could share that. I can't promise that I'll be able to find it. If you comment on something I've posted before, something that Ranger Daniel, that's me, has posted in the comments, then I'll be able to read it. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. You know, if you were in charge of Katmai, what would your policy be on intervention with the bears? But I will tell you that Katmai National Park's policy right now, as it stands, is that we don't intervene unless we think we can successfully do something, and that the problem, the injury, was caused by a human. So there's kind of a famous story. I don't know if I'll go into it right now, but it's definitely one you should look up, or I'll tell it another time, of a kind of a famous bear here that ended up getting a snare, a trapping snare around its neck, was injuring it pretty badly. And park manager said, okay, that was a human's fault. That bear didn't injure itself. You know, humans did that, you know, on accident, but the bear, that didn't happen naturally. That's not part of this wild natural process. That's not a part of this natural ecosystem. So they intervened. They tranquilized the bear. They went in, they took the snare off and saved the bear's life and recovered. Would you have done the same thing? A few pieces of context, you know, keep in mind is that there are thousands of bears in Katmai. There's tens of thousands of bears in this part of Alaska. And that one operation was pretty expensive too. I'm not trying to say anything was right or wrong or whatever. I just am trying to give you information so you can think about what you would have done. FYI, my camera battery says it has 27 minutes left, but it died last night when it said something like that. So, no promises. So maybe I should take this time to say this is Ranger Daniel here in Katmai National Park, doing a kind of a live commentary. Yeah, in case you're not sure, this is a live feed that you're watching. I am standing right here on a platform right now with a handful of other people, and we are watching brown bears eating wild salmon. We were just talking about intervention and when humans should be involved in helping manage these bears. And right now, it's basically not ever. These are totally wild bears. They're not trained or aimed or anything like that. The fish, there's no hatchery supporting this fishery. It's a totally wild thing. We've also been talking about ecosystems and thinking about the big picture and how everything's connected. We've been talking about some specific examples of that and some big picture, some ideas that biologists think about when they try and think about how to manage these animals and these ecosystems as a whole. And this is something that we do every now and then. A ranger will jump on the live cams and answer questions, talk about stuff, look at what we're seeing, and oh, there's a bear popping out right below me and the battery is red. Let me try and point it down here. And so I encourage you to follow us on social media, follow explore.org on social media, tune in to these bear cams often. In this last week of July, we're going to try and get on here as much as possible. The salmon run is past the peak, so we don't know how much we're going to have left here to do this. But we're going to try and be online as much as we can, sharing this amazing place with everyone. Someone commented and said, asked if some bears go into hibernation sooner than others, and they do. A little bit of it, you know, might appear to be random to our eyes. It might just be, you know, the bear's kind of personal preference and personal internal clock. But also, you know, with some predictability, sows with cubs will go into the den first if they're fat enough. Sows with cubs will come out of the den a little bit later as well, and then sows with spring cubs, they're going to stay in the den probably the longest. Or even if they come out, they might stay near the den So they end up being the last bears that we usually see right around Rook's Camp here, is the sows with cubs. But, you know, that's kind of just a general rule. There's a lot of exceptions to that. I don't know if you can still see me and check things over. I know one person just posted that I'm back on. Maybe someone else can tell me if for sure. Can you hear me? The battery died and I just pulled another one out of my back pocket and popped it in there. I didn't know if it was going to work or not to do that. So you'll have to let me know if it did. And if it did, I don't know. I'm not too hungry yet. I'll hang out for a while longer and do this. I'm having fun if everyone else is. Alright, so it sounds like I'm back on. Well, if we're going to keep going, maybe share this around. Tell your friends to join us, and let's just keep the conversation going. This is Ranger Daniel here in Katmai National Park. We're watching bears. Oh, and we've got a bear coming up here. Got something exciting, folks. We have a sow with two